Sueta, high five. Sueta, high five. Sueta, high five. Yeah, if you didn't watch the after credits scene in episode 12 of Gundam: The Witch of Mercury, go watch that because I'm going to talk about that. But yeah, quite a final episode of Gundam: The Witch from Mercury. I was a little bit upset because I thought that they were going to delay the episode for streaming because it was delayed streaming in Japan. So I'm like, it better be today because I've been waiting 2 whole weeks for this episode, and we finally got it. And yes, wasn't as game-changing as I thought it was going to be, but yes, everything around Sueta definitely is going to change a lot, and obviously around Miorin as well. But where do I start? Where do I start? I will say that I'm a little bit upset at the ending. I guess I could jump right into the ending. I was very upset by the typical, you saved my life and you're a murderer thing. But, I mean, it's understandable. She did technically kind of just flop into some blood and hold out her hand all covered in blood and said, hey, how's it going? There's a lot of really cool symbolic shots in this episode that I thought was kind of interesting. I mean, yes, obviously her holding up her hand covered in blood. Yes, it's because she toppled into the blood, but it's her Gundam. Like, it is literally Ariel is her hand is covered in blood. So it's kind of, okay, she just splatted it with Ariel and then she comes out and the blood's still on her hand. So it's connecting the two of them together. Symbolisms. But no, the other shot they had that kind of was really cool is the fact that technically at the very end when she's on the platform and Ariel's sitting there, it's the same exact shot is in the first episode where the two of them are still on the hand and she says that she's her bride or whatever. But it's pretty cool to see that how it was back here. You're now my bride, and then, or you're now my groom, and then over here it's like, oh, get away from me. How it was and how it's going. I've already seen that meme. But no, again, I do understand the aspect of what's going through Miorin's head. She's just seen some dude just literally get splatted. And the fact that Sueta is so, like, happy about it. Like, she doesn't even recognize what she just did. And this is going to get into the deeper mind of Sueta. Oh, man, I'm just going to go over the place here. But hopefully it all comes together decently well. When Sueta first runs into Prospera, really cool scene. Guys coming around the corner. I knew Prospera was going to show up. I knew she was already there. Prospera takes everybody out, and Sueta is shocked. You just took their lives. Oh my gosh. Understandable. I think it is kind of understandable. And again, this goes to Miorin as well, this is their first experience in actual death. These children have been living pretty peacefully their entire lives. Everything's handled by duels, as Prospera's put. Now, things are hitting the fan. Now, this is war. Right here is war. And I like that, yes, as manipulative as Prospera is, she puts it in good terms. If I didn't go forward and come out here, I would have lost you. But coming out here, I gained you. I don't want to lose you. And you don't need to do that as well. You need to get out there with Ariel and protect those around you. Protect Miorin. You can save lives. It's a really easy way of putting, you got to protect people. You have the opportunity to, and you shouldn't lose it. Again, it's Prospera manipulating, but yes, in the end, you can see it as being a good thing. But yeah, it was a cool little scene, like seeing the splatter. It's very obvious they're showing this little splatter, and you have Sueta here, Prospera here, and she doesn't want to cross that line. And then finally, she crossed that line. And this is the turning point that I think is for Sueta. This is the point where it almost feels as if she's trying to awaken Ariel. She's trying to wake up Eri. Because I think beyond this point, it's like a change in Sueta. She gets into the Ariel, and she suddenly doesn't see things as dangerous. She's blasting away, and everything in the path of her destruction is going to die. But it doesn't seem like she has any sort of filters as to what she's doing. She's not shooting for an arm. She's not shooting for an antenna. She's shooting at everybody without concern about what it hits. And that big, gigantic laser would wipe out everybody in its path. But she doesn't see that. And that extends to when she goes to save Miorin. She sees something of a threat here. Stop. Gets out. Hey, Miorin, how's it going? She has no idea. Again, it kind of goes back to the prologue. When we had Eric in there, Eri, when she was in the pilot seat and she's pointing at things and she goes, boom, boom, fireworks. It's like a childlike mind. It's a mind of innocence that doesn't know what's actually happening. What does it mean for one of those things to blow up? A life lost. She doesn't connect that because she doesn't know. It almost feels the same way with Sueta. Oh, stop it. Okay, I stopped it. I stopped the dude from doing what he's doing. Hey, Miorin, how's it going? She doesn't connect that she just killed something. And I fully expect that going into the next core, she is going to crash heavy. It's going to come to a point where she finally realizes, oh, That's what's on my hand. I did that. That was me. That was a life. And then she's just going to break. Again, it's that conundrum. It is the aspect, this is war. This guy literally told Mjorin, or really was telling Delling, I'm going to take you out. Even if I can't get back to Earth, I'm going to take you down with me. This guy was going to kill her father. And yes, in this episode, we really do kind of see Mjorin finally acknowledging that she does care for her father and wants to protect him and wants to save his life. So Mjorin does want her father alive. This guy was going to kill her father. Suetta saved her. And there's no doubt that the guy would have killed Mjorin as well. Suetta saved them. But again, there's a disconnect happening here because of the pure violence of it. So even though it does frustrate me at first glance of like, girl, she just saved your life. What the hell are you doing calling her a murderer? I think that's like a mistranslation. I think it's probably more you're a killer. Murderer usually typically kind of extends into the realms of killing innocents, whereas being just a straight killer is somebody who just kills somebody. Murder, this was purely self-defense here. This was purely the idea that this guy was going around killing everybody and he was going to kill her. This was an act of protecting somebody, not necessarily into the realm of being a murderer. But still, it gives credit to I guess it gives impact. The word itself, I guess, gives more impact to the idea that Suetta stumbles out of it and goes, whoa, whoa, come here, Mjorin. And she's covered in blood and she has no sign of remorse of what she just did. It sucks again. And I hope it doesn't really hold too long. I think if anything, Mjorin may have like a temporary, yeah, I guess you had to do that. And let's go. We have to get my father to safety. We need to fix this. But still, super crazy. And again, technically spits into my theories about this episode. My biggest theory that I was giving everybody was that I swore that Suetta was going to die. I can technically claim that I was right. The actual Suetta died, and I think that there was this period of time right here after she met with Prospera. Again, I think that she almost became childlike, and it's almost as if Eri took over. I'm curious if we're going to get to a point where this is an aspect of Suetta having almost a split mind. She has the Suetta side and she has an Eri side. And the Eri side is so childlike and so almost, it's stuck in that moment of innocence that she doesn't know what she's doing. But we'll see. We shall see. Was a pretty crazy. I honestly was thinking, like, after the entire episode, I'm like, well, nothing really crazy happened this episode. Besides the whole thing with Mjorin and Delling. Yeah, it's important. Yes, technically Nika screwed up. But it wasn't, and yes, technically Gil, yes, that happened. It didn't feel like a fulfilling episode. It didn't feel like enough really shook up things. And so when we got to the credits, I'm like, there's got to be an after credits. Yeah, there's an after credits. And then it happened. I'm like, okay. So now the two jokes are high five since what the... I haven't seen people say high five yet, but they're definitely memeing the crap out of that hand. High five Suetta and happy birthday. If she says happy birthday or high five, do not just run. But yes, I guess we should talk really quickly about Nika. Yes, Nika, when she's in the spaceship with everybody else, I think it was Sophie, not Sophie, I think it was Norie. I think Norie or Sophie, one of the two of them shows up, and yes, Nika immediately she realizes that this is a Gundam from Earth. She knows it's from that group that she called up. So she runs to the bridge and starts to signal to them. Ally of Prince. And they left. Now, this is the annoying thing because the moment that Martin comes in, just so happened, Martin's like, "Ooh, where's she going? I better go follow her because I gotta discover what she's doing." Martin comes charging in. "Nika, what did you do?" And it's so dumb because it's like, all she has to do is turn and say, "I just signaled at them that we're civilians," and they left. I mean, he doesn't know what she signaled. She basically did like a Morse code. It looked like she was doing Morse code, basically. So unless he seen her finger and what she was Morse coding, he's not going to know what she said. So all she got to do is say, "Well, I just signaled that we were civilians," and thankfully they bought it and they left. That's all it takes. But still, it's going to turn into this whole thing where Martin says she was a part of that group and Nika's terrible, which honestly at this point, Nika deserves it. I mean, she technically is the reason this whole thing happened. She helped facilitate this command to do this. She was the phone. Here comes Sadiq. He comes up and says, "Hey, I need to use your phone." And she's like, "Okay, here's the phone." And it went to that. She knew full well what she was doing, and she was upset that she was doing it. And she could have told them that Sadiq was doing something. Now, maybe she didn't hear the conversation. It kind of implies that she knew. What other reason would Shadiq have to call a group that seems to be like an underground Earthian hit group? The whole thing with Gyo, though, that was... I seen it coming from a mile away. Still tragic. But yes, Ghoul, Bob the Builder, was overheard some people talking about what he figured was Sueta, so he jumps into a really crappy mobile suit, goes out there, starts panicking because he wants to get to Sueta. He says that he can't die until he goes forward with Sueta. So it's sort of indicating here that he does want to take a step forward with Sueta. He wants to reach towards Sueta. He wants to get to some future with her. So at least he's connecting his future with her. It's not necessarily saying that he's in love with her. It's not saying anything really other than the idea that Sueta's here and I want to go forward with her. Whether it's love or whatever, that's the big question mark. He's always claimed that it's not love. Could just be more for a common goal or just to be with her, be at her side. But either way, he doesn't want to die yet. Which, yes, leads to the most obvious thing that was going to happen is Jeturk attacking him and him in a panic turning around and taking out his father. Before, yes, his father legit says, "Oh, Ghoul, I've been looking everywhere for you." Just to put a little sting in there. Father that he didn't think liked him at all was looking for him. I don't think he was looking for him for a good reason, but yes, you can claim that he was a good father somewhere in there. I think that's what they're implying, is that somewhere inside there, Vim Jeturk was a good person. So that's going to screw him up. It is kind of odd, though, because I think the moment that Jeturk got into a mobile suit, it didn't make much sense to me. Because obviously he's mad. He knew that Shadiq crossed him, was going to take him out too, and he was mad. So he's like, I'm not going to let Glassley do this to me. Give me a mobile suit. He gets inside the mobile suit, goes out there, and immediately he starts noting, these are my mobile suits. They dare use my mobile suit for something like this. So it goes to that whole question mark of like, yeah, but you're kind of working with them. Like you were kind of working with them. You not know they had these? It's kind of a big question mark there. You would assume that he knew what Shadiq and this Donna Fold, was it? Yeah, the Donna Fold was going to use, but maybe, again, they stole his mobile suit and didn't tell him. But either way, we won't know because dude's toast. Before I forget, we did kind of get an indication about the permit scores and the antidote and how it works. Sophie, at some point, uses permit score 2, I think it was, 1 or 2. And they decide to employ the antidote, which is to stop the gun format. And she says permit score 4, which really hurts her. So it kind of pushes back against the idea of her being similar to Sueta. Now, granted, again, Sueta's whole ability to do this is mainly around the idea that there's some sort of thing they did differently with Ariel than any other Gundam, but it, again, implies the idea that whatever they did to these Gundams is not the same as Ariel. So she's being harmed by the permit score 4. But then she says that antidote only works up to 3. So I don't know if it's meaning that specifically this antidote that they're using, this technology, or at least this advancement of it, doesn't affect beyond 3. But again, kind of interesting thing to note. But yes, the last part that we really need to talk about is Mjorin and Delling. Obviously seeing quite a development in their relationship. And yes, like I mentioned several times in previous videos, this has been a process that has all been kind of sparked by Gundink. Because she now did that, Delling seen her as an equal, and now she was suddenly happy with her father. She was no longer angry with him because now she was getting some attention from him, and he was seeing her as somewhat of an equal. And so now, with him showing up in front of her and getting harmed, and him shielding her, which is a big point to make, that he'd be willing to shield her from death, despite the fact that she thinks that he hates her, really did kind of advance the relationship. So it does seem like, based on the fact that he wasn't dead by the end of this episode, I really do think that he's going to survive this, or at least he's going to be critically injured, maybe get some more moments together to really discuss things. But at least he survived this episode. But again, getting into more of the idea that she's doing everything she can to make sure that he survives as well. So the two of them have kind of come to an understanding that they do care for each other. I do like when they first showed up, he's like, why aren't you in a spacesuit? She's like, why not worry about your daughter first? But yes, after the explosion and he shields her, he brings up this phrase, which I think has been said before in this series, which is choose the option that's best chance of success. I think that's a quote that Mjorin has said before. But yes, he says that that is something that Nortret would say. That's what she would do, which, yes, Mjorin confirms is her mother. I don't know that we've ever mentioned Notret before, if that's how you pronounce it, Notrete. I don't think we've mentioned her before, but I'll definitely take note of that one. There was also a lot of emphasis on space trash, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, there's explosion and things going everywhere, and they're concerned about shell casings because all the Earthians, that Sophie and Noria and the rest of this group, they're using, like, bullets and stuff. So they have shell casings that are flying out, whereas everybody else is using, you know, laser-type technologies that don't leave behind trash. So they're concerned. They're in the middle of this battle, and they're like, "Oh no, you're leaving shell casings in the space. Stop the shell casings." It's like, that's kind of a very odd thing to suddenly bring up, but whatever. I don't know if it was just trying to point out the difference in technology there, the fact that they were using actual projectile bullets that have casings. Anyways, again, not as crazy of a final episode as I was kind of expecting. We did technically, like I said, Venger Turk died. Delling's not doing well. Mirin pretty much made a really strong bond with her father through self-sacrifice. Again, we established this whole thing with the permit score and the antidote possibly having a limit, which is kind of an interesting thing because it means that they have to go at a higher permit score, which is a lot more self-destructive just to get around it. So there's a risk there, which I guess technically I think Eric's father did right in the prologue. He pushed it to like the limits. And yes, Nika got caught. I don't know why. Prospera pushing her daughter into going crazy again, and like I said, Sweta, and that almost, like I said, split personality that I think they're kind of emphasizing. But again, I was expecting that Sweta would die. I knew that Miorin wasn't going to die, and again, I was kind of thinking that Delling wasn't going to die either. But again, we'll see next. I still think it's an impactful end, but I think, again, I thought it was going to be more. I thought they were going to shake things up a lot more than they did. And again, I thought Nika was going to be at the center of that because she had some sort of connection with everybody. But we'll see. April is the next core, so it's going to be quite a while before we get more episodes. So I hope you'll stick around until then. But I hope you guys enjoyed my impressions of the finale of the first season. I think they're still calling it all one season. This could be probably first season. Anyways, episode 12 of Gundam, The Witch from Mercury. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, make sure to hit that like button down below. Comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Would you give Sweta a high five or a birthday? Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button to get all my content. I do news reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody that does, and y'all take care.